Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network. This morning, we're visiting with Joseph Buzzetta. He is the executive director of the Central Louisiana Homeless Coalition. With all of the things that have happened this year, the most vulnerable of our population have certainly seen huge changes. And here to talk about that, of course, is Joseph Buzzetta. Joseph, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Joseph, so many things have happened this year. COVID-19 is just one of the things, probably the major thing. But we've had storms, we've had ice storms, and we just wonder how people who are vulnerable and homeless have made it through all of the crisis.
Yeah, so to say this year has been wild is a severe understatement. Like you said, we've had COVID-19. We're almost at a year mark of this pandemic. We had 2 hurricanes back to back, and then of course we had the ice storm that just hit us a couple of weeks ago. So in terms of working with the most vulnerable in our community, all these things individually might be able to help some people might be able to get through them, but the combination of all of them in one go has severely impacted not only low-income workers, but also agencies that work out to help these individuals as well. We've had to modify hours. We've had to go virtual. We've had to do a whole bunch of different things to try to accommodate not only the COVID-19 CDC guidelines, but also the other things that have gone on with hurricanes and ice storm as well. So it's been a year to navigate the social service network for our most vulnerable.
And so as you talk about those things, it's kind of hard to reach the homeless when we talk about virtual. Life has gone virtual for everybody, but not for the homeless.
Correct. Yeah. And it's really made outreach difficult as well, because as we've learned more and more about this virus, one thing that we've kind of discovered is that individuals that have underlying health conditions like high blood pressure, heart disease, and things of the like, they are the ones that are most vulnerable for critical COVID-19 infections. And a lot of the clients that we serve who are homeless, they do have these underlying conditions as well. But then on the flip side, they're out on the street, they're out in the elements and dealing with all those issues. So trying to balance both the CDC guidelines to help protect them from COVID, but also continue to service them while they're on the streets and help get them the things they need has been a challenge. I think it's one that we've navigated about as efficiently as we could given the circumstances.
Is there a way to help those people that are on the streets, especially, when we were in the thick of COVID? We're seeing the numbers kind of come down. We're in phase 3 now, but how do you help people that in many cases they are mentally ill and dealing with their own, illnesses in addition to all of the events that we have had over the last several months?
Right. Well, and most of that it's continuing the outreach as we normally would, but with masks, with extra hand sanitizer, and also kind of having those one-on-one conversations with clients to explain the importance of making sure that they are following CDC guidelines and how we can basically help to meet up with them. Because normally what would happen is our resource center would be open and clients would come in, we'd have conversations with them. But because of guidelines, we've had to dial back our hours, dial back our services. And so we've had to really work a lot more with our homeless community to try to get a schedule or some semblance of a schedule with them to meet up with them to make sure that we can still continue to follow them throughout all of this. Because while it has been crazy with all of the disasters that have come through, with the passage of a lot of legislation, there have been some opportunities that have really opened up to help our homeless community as well.
Like what, for instance?
So whenever the pandemic started and the first CARES Act was passed, we got a grant that allowed us to put a lot of our homeless community up in local hotels, which did a couple of things for us. The first is that it gave them a place to self-isolate. And one thing about the homeless community is that it's very mobile. And so during a pandemic, you don't really want people who can't really socially distance, can't really practice good hygiene to be working around the community. And so it was a protection for them, but also protection for our community as well. And then the flip side, it allowed us to really do some intensive case management and housing search with these individuals. And luckily, as the CDC guidelines continue to stay, that grant got renewed. And so now we're at a point where we're still continuing that work, but it's helped us to keep them housed during the hurricanes and during this ice storm. So kind of like there's a bright side to everything. The upside is that this grant has really helped us out. And now that we're moving into this next passage of legislation, there's going to be some help coming down with rental assistance for both landlords and tenants that might have some back due rent, and some continuation of some of the grants that have gone on during the first CARES Act as well. So while it's been challenging, there's a lot of opportunities to get plugged in and help out our homeless community.
So, Joseph, did you all see as an organization, were you able to place more people? You talked about, at one point putting them in hotels and having them isolated. But with the CARES Act, were you able to actually house more people? Because I don't know if it's just me or if it's really we're seeing more people on the streets.
Yeah, so it's interesting about that, to kind of square that circle, is from our numbers, we've actually seen homelessness go down over the past year. We don't really have any feedback right now as to what COVID and the hurricanes have done. To give my guess, we're going to see that report come a year from now go up, just because people naturally that are lower income have lost their housing. But what we are seeing is that there's a lot of people who were displaced from the hurricanes. And so because of that, they've got displaced, they come up north. So that leaves you with more people that are on the streets. And the other thing that we're seeing as well as service providers is that a lot of the individuals that are left on the streets are those that have severe mental health, severe addiction. And those are usually the individuals that you kind of associate with homelessness. They're more likely to, have shopping carts, be panhandling, be sleeping outside of businesses. And so while we're seeing an overall reduction in homelessness, what I do think that we are seeing is more of our challenging cases and more of those severe cases of mental illness and addiction that are out on the streets that we have to work through. And those do have some unique and challenging services that we have to deliver to them.
And so for people who are listening to you and are just like me, the layperson, that we're looking around our communities and we're seeing more people panhandling. We're seeing more people who appear to have some sort of mental health issues. What does the community need to understand as they are weaving in and out of places where people are going, like to grocery stores or to the mall and places like that? Because people get afraid of what they don't understand.
Right, and it's understandable. There still is that stigma around mental illness, and it's really hard because you don't really know how to interact with these people. Right. But the first thing is that if you do happen to see somebody who you believe is homeless, shoot us a quick email at info@sinlawhomeless.org, just with a description of where you saw the person, kind of what they look like, so that we can get an outreach worker out to see them. What we have found is that there's a couple of people who we've actually never seen before. And so we want to make sure that we're reaching out to them to get them on our coordinated entry list and also get them services. And the second thing that I try to encourage everybody is to not give out money to people who are panhandling. I know that right now COVID, hurricanes, and freeze are kind of the big topics, but there still is the opioid crisis. There still is fentanyl out on the streets. And unfortunately, a lot of the individuals that are on the streets right now, a large majority of them do have some kind of substance abuse issue. And so what ends up happening is they'll give them money, they'll use it for a little bit of food, a little bit of something to get by, but then it does go to feeding that addiction, which, I understand it from their perspective. If you're on the streets, you gotta take something to take that edge off. It's really hard to be out there on the streets nowadays. But it really is dangerous to give to these individuals because it can lead to a lot of issues. Had a lot of people who might think they're taking one thing and then be given another and have to go to the hospital. And the other thing about that as well is that at the end of the day, what these individuals need isn't just money. They also need the case management services to help learn, okay, how do you budget? How do you become a good neighbor? And what happens is the more that people give to panhandling, the more it encourages that behavior. And what we see is as panhandling goes up, the amount of people that come and see us at the coalition and our partner agencies like VOA and the Hope House, they tend to go down. And so what ends up happening is people stay stuck on the streets longer instead of getting into some kind of long-term housing.
So it seems like we're helping, but we're really hurting, and we're prolonging the situation when we continue to feed the panhandler.
Right. It's the analogy I like to use is that, like, if somebody has a broken leg, you don't want to just give them Tylenol time and time again. Like, you want to get them to the hospital, you want to get them into the rehab to get them back on their feet. And that's really what panhandling is that ultimately it's helping just to mask the problem instead of solving it. And then the other thing you have to consider too is that not everybody who is on the streets and says they're homeless is homeless. Panhandling is very lucrative. It's very easy for somebody to make anywhere from, 50 to $100 within an hour just sitting on the street corner. But if you are concerned and you really do want to help somebody, the biggest thing to do is buy items to hand out instead of cash. So instead of giving out money, keep a couple of like snack bars in your car, keep some bottled water. I know we're kind of in this weird Louisiana phase where it might be hot one day, cold for another, but keep things like cold weather items, mosquito spray, lotion, things that are tangible that people can use. And that'll also help out as well.
Those are good tips. Joseph, before we've got to let you go, tell people how, if they're a concerned citizen, they can connect with you, or if there's somebody that wants to have a homeless person connected with the services that the Central Louisiana Homeless Coalition provides, how they can connect.
Yeah, so there's really three ways. So the first is, like I mentioned, that info@sinlawhomeless.org. That's kind of our tip line. So if you see somebody, shoot us an email. We'll get out to you. We'll get out to that person. Because of confidentiality, we can't respond and say, "Oh yeah, we saw this person. They're homeless. Here's what we're doing." But so if it gets to our inbox, it will be forwarded to an outreach worker. The second is we do have a Facebook, Central Louisiana Homeless Coalition. Kind of same thing. If you want to shoot us a message, we'll go ahead and get that to our outreach worker. Same confidentiality rules apply. We can't really go into details about what services we're providing. And then the third is that our resource center is open from 8 to 12. So if somebody needs to come over to our resource center at Jackson Street, it's at 1515 Jackson Street. We do ask that anybody who comes over to the coalition, please make sure to wear a mask. If you don't have one, we can provide one as well. So those are really the three ways that if somebody needs to get connected or wants to learn more about us, you can learn about how you can help out in the community.
There you go. Joseph, thank you so much for all the work that you've done and are doing. You hit the ground running. And I know when you took this job, you never thought that you would be hit with so many crises in trying to help to resolve the Homeless Coalition. But you guys are doing an amazing job. Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate that. It really has been it's really a testament to our community. Like in this time, I found that people really have came together and really are focused on that real mission of helping people out. So it's really a testament to our community, how well we've kind of come together.
There you go. Thank you so much. Joseph Buzzetta, he's the executive director of the Central Louisiana Homeless Coalition. Stay on point. We're back right after this.